What up, what up, what up, Finn fans? Welcome to another episode of the Finn Posse Podcast. I'm your host, Big C, and this is brought to you by Game Changers Media. Again, sorry I'm not live today, but work has come a calling again. But I'd like to drop you a quick video. Hopefully, want to do a open panel tonight at some point, maybe 9:30. So keep an eye out, look out for that. I'll make a thumbnail and make the video available. Well, I'll make it known earlier in the day, somewhere around 4 or 5 o'clock, what time the open panel will be. So I hope to hear from you guys tonight. I miss talking to each and every one of you. But make sure you turn your notifications on because sometimes I have to, shoot a video out there and you guys might not know what time it's coming, but I would love to see you guys. I miss you guys. And I do apologize not being able to be live with you each and every day like I'd like to be. You know what I mean? Because that's the best part of this show is interaction between me and you guys. I love to hear your takes on stuff. I love to get your opinion on stuff. So bear with me. The season is getting closer. We had football on last night. It feels so good to have football back. Listen, it's August. The regular season is next month. The regular season is next month. How exciting is that? How exciting is that? Absolutely. Football is intoxicating to me. I love the game of football. It's the best time of the year. Listen, I love the summertime, but there's nothing like fall and Sunday afternoons and Monday nights. Oh man, just absolutely wonderful. But yeah, let's get into it. Just a quick video. Mike McDaniel just finished his press conference, talking about the team. He was talking about the how do you decide between Jonah Savanea and James Daniels, which one's going to play left guard, right guard, since both of them have been right guards. They have more experience at right guard. So he's like, you just give them both snaps. He talked a little bit about Ollie Gordon, saying that Ollie Gordon's learning the position. In college, you just hand off the ball to the guy. There's a lot more different ways to get the ball in the hands of players in the pros. So he said that basically Ollie Gordon is learning, which he's a rookie. He's a late round pick. Expected, right? Expected. We got capable players on this team ahead of Ollie Gordon that we don't need Ollie Gordon to come in and be the number one back right away, right? And there's a chance that Ollie Gordon may never be the number one back because we have a very talented halfback in Devon Achane, right? You got Jalen Wright, who was a early round pick ahead of him also. And then Alexander Madison, since the pads have come on, has looked absolutely fabulous. So there's no rush to get Ollie Gordon. Would we like him to contribute this year? Yeah, absolutely. And I think that he will. But there's no rush on the kid. There's no rush on him. He also talked about Tua's leadership and being able to address the Tyreek Hill situation, which I'm getting tired of hearing about the Tyreek Hill situationship, the relationship. These guys are trying to work on it, obviously. Let's give it some time. Let's stop harping on it. Let's just leave it alone. This is probably Tyreek's last year here. Let's all be cordial with each other and have a great year. You know what I mean? Tyreek Hill is talented, probably the most talented player on this team. We need him if we want to have any level of success this season, right? They also talked to Mike McDaniel about his change in coaching, if he had to become more of a hard ass, and I just don't think that's Mike McDaniel. You know what I mean? I don't think that's Mike McDaniel. There was obviously issues with how Mike McDaniel ran the team. He was probably too lenient with players, allowing too much stuff to go on. And regardless, it seems like there's a different atmosphere this year surrounding the team that that's not necessarily the case, and players are holding each other accountable now. So regardless of what happened, there is a noticeable change so far, and I don't care how they got to that point or what the reasoning is, as long as it's happening, right? Also, I feel like lots of times on this channel, I try to appease everybody's feelings as far as I don't want to go too. I don't. Sometimes I hold in my feelings in a certain subject because I don't want to offend. There's multiple different types of Miami Dolphin fans, right? There's the people that hate Tua, there's the people that love Tua, there's the negative Nancy's, there's the positive Patties. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes I think I hold back a little bit my true feelings on a subject because I don't want to offend anybody. And I'm gonna stop doing that so much. And it's listen, I care about everybody's opinion, and I'm not saying that I'm always right because I'm not. Not even close. You know what I mean? Not even close. But, you know, I feel like I'm being disingenuous if I'm not giving my real opinion on certain issues because I'm worried about how others are going to feel or if others are going to attack me because of my point of view. So I'm going to try to be more realistic. Listen, I'm a positive Dolphins fan. Listen, if I think something's not going right, I'm not going to just, "Oh, no, we're good." You know what I mean? That's not me neither. I'm not naive. Like I know that our defensive backs are an issue. I'm not just going to be like, "Oh, I'm not worried about it. They're great because they're Dolphins." You know what I mean? No. No, I'm not going to be naive to the fact. But I'm also not going to if I think someone's a good player or if I think that we can win with these players, I'm not going to hold back because a portion of the fan bases disagrees with me. So I'm going to try to be more genuine in my takes on stuff. You know what I mean? And I kind of owe that to CB83 because CB83 is a positive Dolphins fan, right? He tries to look on the bright side of things. And I don't agree with CB83, Finn's take, CB83 on everything, but he is who he is and he's all right with it. You know what I mean? He's all right with it. And he receives the backlash from a lot of people, the so-called wolf pack. You know what I mean? Like I don't even necessarily know what necessarily the wolf pack is or who came up with that term or what it even means, but I know he calls out the wolf pack, and like I said, I don't even know what the wolf packs, if it's even a thing or if it's what their particular view is that makes them the wolf pack. But Finn's takes CB83 really just gives his opinion, and that's what it is. So thank you to him. Shout out to him. He's been real helpful to me in this process. Him, TD, Doug has helped me out some. Shake Money has helped me out. There's there's a long list. So if I didn't mention you and you've helped me, listen, that doesn't mean I've forgotten you, and I appreciate you. But anyway, to the topic of this video, five things that we've learned so far from this first week of training camp. Obviously the last two practices we had yesterday off, the last two practices that we seen, pads were on, which I feel like you get a much more realistic feel for what the team is and what they can accomplish when pads are on. Football is a contact sport, and if you're out there not without pads, I mean, how can you get a true understanding of what you have or what you are if you don't have pads on? So I think you get a much more realistic view of the team if pads are on. So the last 2 days have been real telling for me. But let's get into this list. 5 things that we've learned from the Miami Dolphins so far in training camp. Number 5, the Miami Dolphins are going to have to continue to add defensive backs. Defensive backs have been dropping like flies on us. that was a area of concern before training camp even started. The lack of depth, the lack of true number one corners, the lack of number two corners. You know what I mean? Like, we had a bunch of guys on this team that, were players with some potential, but probably not real starting caliber cornerbacks, right? I mean, if you look up and down this roster, there's names on there that a lot of people have never heard of. A lot of number threes, number fours, number five guys, even. We didn't have any real starting caliber corners on this team. Now, you could argue Storm Duck, who, Storm Duck had a good rookie year last year. Would I say it was phenomenal? No. Do I feel comfortable Storm Duck being the number one corner on this team, number two corner on this team? No. But I think he's a good player, and I think he's got potential. Even Cater Kohu, before the injury, Cater Kohu. We've seen Cater on the outside, and when Cater was a rookie, he played pretty decent on the outside. But he had Xavier Howard across the field from him when he was a rookie. He wasn't responsible for covering the number one guy. And Cater Kohu's made a nice little niche for himself as he's a pretty good nickel cornerback. But we expected Cater to move to the outside, where we've seen him get his fair amount of butt whoopings on the field. In particular, Stephon Diggs, that game in Buffalo, Stephon Diggs was eating his lunch over and over and over again. So we're going to have to continue to add defensive backs. The amount of injuries that we suffered, between Artie Burns, Cater Kohu out for the year, Ashton Davis going down with an injury. Melifonu's not back yet. He's dealing with some injuries. BJ Adams, undrafted free agent, concussion. We're going to have to continue to add bodies. We're going to have to continue to make moves. The sad thing is that Cater Kohu was having a great camp before he went down with the injury. Cater Kohu was making great strides to being maybe the number two corner on this team, number one corner. He was probably the best corner on this team when he went down with his injury. But since he's hurt, we got to continue that. We brought in Jack Jones, who's got great potential, but he's a hit or miss player. He's either going to make the greatest play you've ever seen or the worst play you've ever seen. There's not really in between with the guy. Now, I think he's a good depth piece, but do I feel comfortable with him starting? We brought in Mike Hilton, who I think is a very good nickel corner. But the Miami Dolphins cannot be satisfied with what's on this team. And if it continues to go down its current path, injuries are piling up, and we're just going to have to keep bringing in guys just so we can get to the regular season with some starters. But the Miami Dolphins need to continue to add cornerbacks, and that's what I've learned so far through this first week of training camp. Number 4 thing I've learned in training camp so far is that Chris Grier has absolutely hit a home run when it's come to James Daniels and Willie Gay Jr. Now, Chris Grier gets a lot of criticism from us fans for some of the moves he makes, which he wholeheartedly deserves. But sometimes I think we forget about the players that Chris Grier has brought in, the home runs he has hit. You know what I mean? And I think this year's home runs are James Daniels, who so far has looked dominant. He's looked healthy. He's looked strong. He's looked mobile. The guy is gonna be a great right guard for the Miami Dolphins this year, and that's the position I think he ends up playing is right guard. James Daniel is going to return to being one of the best right guards in all of football. The guy is super intelligent. He's super physical. Just an overall great player. I feel like he's a strong character guy, and I really think that he's gonna help this team up front to be able to run the ball. And that's his forte. That's his strength is run blocking. And that's the biggest weakness of the Miami Dolphins is their run blocking. The passing game is quick based on quick passes, getting the ball out quick. And teams have been able to, especially last year, teams were able to really hunker down on us and lock us up in lots of aspects of our passing game because we were unable to run the football. I think James Daniels helps with that, being next to Aaron Brewer, who had a great year last year. If Austin Jackson come back healthy and just play Austin Jackson football, again, not great football, but not bad football. Austin Jackson's just an average starter. But you don't need to have superstars all up and down your offensive line to have a good offensive line. James Daniels can be that superstar right guard that we've been missing for a long time. So I think Chris Grier did an absolute great job getting him. We laugh and joke at Chris Grier about bringing in players coming off injuries and stuff. And, James Daniels had a significant injury that he was coming back from. And who knew? There was no way of knowing if he was going to come back and be the same type of player before the injury. But signed so far after week 1 of training camp is James Daniels is going to be healthy. He's going to be ready, and he's returning to that top form right guard that he was before he went down last year. He was the top ranked guard in all of football last year before he went down with his injury. And through the first week of training camp, it seems that he is going to return to that, and that's huge for this Miami Dolphins team. Another home run that I feel that Chris Grier has hit this offseason is Willie Gay Jr., inside linebacker. Now, Willie Gay had a down year for the Saints last year, but this guy has won a Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. He brings a winning mentality to this team. He brings a positive vibe. He brings a boatload of energy. Yeah, he's running out on the practice, screaming, yelling, constantly getting the morale of the team up. I love this guy. He's constantly around the ball doing big things. I think he takes Dotson's spot in the starting lineup. I think Chris Grier absolutely hit a home run with the signing of Willie Gay and James Daniels. Number 3 thing I feel like we've learned from the first week of training camp is that I think our defensive front can be dominant. Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips both look healthy. The consensus is that Chop Robinson is a superstar in the making. All he gets is constant praise from his teammates, from his coaches. Chop Robinson's going to be an animal. You mix that in with Jordan Brooks, has been absolutely phenomenal in his second year with the Miami Dolphins. You add in Willie Gay, like I said, this Miami Dolphins front has a chance to be really special, really dominant, and really help out our weak secondary. Because that's where the question marks are on this team is in the secondary. We were able to get Minkah Fitzpatrick in a trade for Jalen Ramsey. That was a win for the Miami Dolphins. No way did I think we were going to get a player the caliber of Minkah Fitzpatrick in return for Jalen Ramsey. I thought we were just going to have to take a loss on that one. But this front seven absolutely helps out the back end of our defense. And I think they can be dominant against the run. You got Kenneth Grant, who is an absolute monster down there, who's going to demand double teams. You got Zach Sealer coming off back-to-back 10-sack seasons. You get Jalen Phillips back, who before he went down with his injury was having his best season as a pro. Bradley Chubb coming back from injury, who was having one of his better years as a pro when he had went down. And the addition of Chop Robinson. Man, this front seven has absolutely the ability to be a dominant force. And so far through camp, they've showed that. They have showed that. Number two, the second thing that I think that we've learned through camp so far this year is that Jalen Waddle may have finally turned the corner. Now, I've been a critic of Jalen Waddle, and I like Jalen Waddle. Don't get me wrong, I like Jalen Waddle, but Jalen Waddle to me was always a top tier number two guy. He didn't really. I didn't put him in the same conversation as Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, guys that were drafted in similar positions as Jalen Waddle, a top 10 pick in the draft. But Jalen Waddle has absolutely improved his route running this offseason. He's improved his catching the ball more with his hands this year. He's got a better repertoire with Tua Tagovailoa. They seem to be on the same page. He just seems to be a different type of beast this year. And that's very exciting news for the Miami Dolphins, especially considering Tyreek Hill is in the final year of his contract. There's no way that, I mean, he's not in the final year, but there's no way that the Miami Dolphins bring Tyreek Hill back with the current cap hit it would require to bring him back. I think it's somewhere like 50-some million dollars, which there's no way the Miami Dolphins keep him on that roster at this point. So if Jalen Waddle can be that number one receiver we drafted him to be, a truly dominant number one receiver, if he could take over the reins from Tyreek Hill this year, that would be huge. And like I said, so far in camp, he's been the best wide receiver. And yeah, Tyreek's been coming back from injury, so Jalen Waddle's had a lot more repetitions with Tua than normal. But Jalen Waddle has been fantastic. And the number one thing I think we've learned through training camp after 1 week is that we have our left tackle of the future. That's the number one thing I think we've taken from training camp after this first week is that Patrick Paul is the real deal. Patrick Paul was very good before the pads came on. The last two practices after pads have came on, Patrick Paul has been nothing less than dominant. Nothing less than dominant. He has, and listen, the guy's not going against scrubs. He's going against Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Chop Robinson, and the guy is eating lunch. He's out there doing dominant things. The guy is a monster. He's such a big guy. He just engulfs the defender. There's no running through him because he's so big. But he's got great mechanics, great footwork, a knowledge of the game. That year studying under Teron Armstead has done wonderful things for him. His constantly probing Teron Armstead for knowledge, the extra reps he stays after practice to get has paid off. Patrick Paul is going to be a top 12 left tackle in the league this year. And I truly believe that. I think he's going to be a top 12 left tackle in the league this year. And next year at this time, we're probably talking about Patrick Paul as a top 5 left tackle in the league. And that's huge. That's huge. And we can add into this number one thing that we've learned through the first week of training camp is that the Miami Dolphins might finally have the the offensive line that we've been clamoring about. When you take Patrick Paul at left tackle, Jonah Savanea at left guard, at center Aaron Brewer, right guard James Daniels, right tackle Austin Jackson, we may finally have the offensive line we've been begging for. Now, depth is another. That's another thing because the depth on this offensive line is absolutely horrid. This offensive line depth is absolutely horrid. The Miami Dolphins still need to make a move on that front. But as far as our starters are concerned, we might have a top 10 unit on our hands here. And if we have a top 10 offensive line, that does magical things for this offense. That opens up the running game for Devon Achane. And if we can run the ball, the passing game will take off. Absolutely super impressed with this offensive line through the first week of training camp, in particular, Patrick Paul. So things are looking up, in my opinion. Obviously, there's still some things that we need to address before the start of the season. Hopefully, Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel figure some more things out. We can bring some more bodies in, and but you gotta feel hopeful and have a positive feeling about this football team through the first week of training camp, folks. The team is back on the field today. I'm pretty sure it's open to the public, so we'll get more news and notes as the days goes on. Again, thank you. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be live today, but hopefully this can drop for you guys about 10 o'clock. But I got to get out of here because I got to get to work. But I love y'all. I appreciate you all. And fins up forever. And I'll see y'all later. Keep up. Listen, hit that notification button on your page so you know when we drop videos, or you know when we're doing an open fan panel. Sometimes it's not on schedule, and I apologize about that. Life happens. But keep an open mind. Hit that notification button, and I hope to see y'all later. Until next time, folks, fins up. Peace.